Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and we got a quiet week featuring some Gracie Abrams. This is Billboard BREAKDOwn.
I don't remember.
There are weeks on the Billboard Hot 100 that feel like a holding pattern, and this probably shouldn't be. I'm not saying I wanted a Gracie Abrams album bomb. The project's not good. I don't want to hear more of it. And she did see the biggest impact of any individual artist this week in terms of sheer numbers. But we're a ways into this summer, and for everyone complaining that 2025 was dull, this year has felt demonstrably worse, to the point where the normal chart watchers seem to be tuning out of the process. I've seen the numbers watching my videos, and I would also struggle to say it's Billboard's fault this time. The rules or balance between radio and streaming and sales doesn't appear to be the issue. This feels like a larger systemic fault of the music industry just failing to meet the moment on their own entertainment standards. I'm not asking for high art. I'm asking for a little bit more competition. Just try a little bit before the end of the summer. Case in point, going to our top 10, Shoes in Texas by Ella Langley is still at number 1, but will probably face its biggest challenge next week against Morgan Wallen's big new single. Both are discounted on sales. It could be down to the wire, but it could well be the question of whether or not its streaming might and residual pop radio holds out compared to whatever Morgan Wallen is bringing. Compare this to I Knew It, I Knew You by Taylor Swift at number 2, where she's on the path to take that radio top spot, but sales are down, and there's a healthy streaming margin that she needs to make deeper inroads to. So what might be more of the challenger is Boston by Stella Lefty at number 3. Great sales, even better streams, and as soon as the radio catches up, it could well go to the top. Then we saw gains for I Can't Love You Anymore by Ella Langley and Morgan Wallen up to number 4. Solid radio week, great streaming pickups, and only then do we leave the realm of country and country adjacent songs at the very top of the Hot 100, where I can't recall anything like this in decades, to say nothing of the number of women being this dominant. The closest I can think of is maybe the late 90s, when Shania Twain nearly went to number 1 with You're Still the One, but was blocked for a solid 2 months in 1998 by Brandy and Monica with The Boy Is Mine. Kind of a similar case for Faith Hill and Breathe in the year 2000, where she couldn't quite break past the, believe it or not, the Santana revival. Incidentally, I think it's going to be very revealing how Morgan Wallen and his handlers and Music Row promote that new single in comparison with the collab that he did with Ella Langley, especially if genre radio crossover becomes a thing. I'm gonna leave it there. Anyway, next we got Hate That I Made You Love Me by Ariana Grande, doing numbers before that upcoming album, down slightly to number 5, more on position, as this was the week where she finally got the major radio push, which also elbowed back Dracula by Tame Impala and Jenny down to number 6, which might be seeing some fractures as the radio has slowed down considerably. Then we saw a slight gain for So Easy to Fall in Love by Olivia Dean at number 7, which had a small streaming gain, but let's be real, this is more because of that radio dominance, but also probably has something to do with some positional losses in the collapse of Be Her by Ella Langley at number 8. And this I would have predicted. The streaming is still great, but they never shipped it to pop radio, despite being the most obvious push for a pop crossover single, so Nashville did its own thing. It dumped it aggressively, as they do when a song reaches what they determined to be its expiry date. Way to blow the opportunity, y'all. Anyway, it still had enough to hold over Man I Need by Olivia Dean at number 9. The streaming is holding, but radio is not, which naturally takes us to I Just Might by Bruno Mars at number 10, which pretty much just has radio and is sinking fast. Soon to be replaced by, well, another Bruno Mars song that it's got a lot of radio surges with Risk It All. Now, we'll get into probably a bunch of that next week, but for now, our losers and dropouts, and the latter is pretty much just Future, not really worth mentioning. What's also largely true for our losers here too. California Girls plummeting down to 92, Konnichiwa cratering at 95, and taking Morning Dew Donk by Beyonce to 42 along with them. So what would be more interesting is what's replacing, and we actually have a wealth of returns and gains, easily more than any new arrivals, but they're at the very least kind of explainable. In the former group, group, thanks to a huge sales push, Normal by BTS rebounded to 33, and we got some expected Steve Lacy album impact with The Feeling at 77, and Is It Cool with SZA at 80. Really wish that album was a lot better. I would have actually enjoyed more of that album impact. Outside those, and some expected growth from Cowgirl by Shabuzi, which I still quite like. The rest feel like they're songs at the very bottom that are just holding out for that scrap of momentum, largely in country. Hell, outside of In My Room by Julie Wolfe at 96, it's all country. I Want You by Cody Johnson at 86, Bottom of Your Boots by Ella Langley back at 90, South of Sanity by Zach Top making a surprising return at 94, Empty Words by Corey Kent at 97, No Need for Leavin' by Cameron Marlowe at 98, and Kingdom of Fear by Cameron Whitcomb at 100. And, of course, post-album bomb week, there are a lot of gains, and look, I really want to be excited about these, but man, a lot of them are testing me, mostly because there are a slew of cuts that are just shy of 20 weeks below the top 50 that are clinging on, but we could probably get rid of anyway. Motion Party by Bossman D-Lo at 57, A Woman by Kane Brown at 62, Rethink Some Things by Luke Combs at 63, yeah, let's rethink the song, Rein Me In by Sam Fender and Olivia Dean seeing some continued gains up to 69, and Goddamn Swim by BTS is bouncing back to 85. The more egregious case is probably Rain Dance by Dave and Thames, well over 20 weeks but at 53. But also given the radio likes it, it's probably going to be allowed to stick around a little bit longer. Then we got the other loser that saw a rebound, Hit the Wall by Gracie Abrams at 26, as predicted with the album bomb. She also got Look at My Life surging up to 55, and quite a few continued gains. Die Die by Shakira and Burna Boy riding the last of the World Cup fervor to 17. I'm expecting it's going to crash soon. Great Expectation by Sienna Spiro at 56, and Misery by Pupsies at 50. Everything about that last one being successful fills me with dread. The song's bad, but the real issue is that if it gets bigger and hits mainstream penetration, I worry the categorical misunderstandings of it and its scene, to say nothing of backlash, could well eclipse it. From there, we got a few returns, seeing gains, neither being good. Bloodstream by Alyssa Grace at 67, and Think As You Drunk by Riley Green at 81, and the rest, it's a mess. Look, I'm sorry. Carry On by Kenny Chesney at 84. Speed Demon by Justin Bieber at 75. House Tour by Sabrina Carpenter at 72. Mr. Know-It-All by Teddy Swims at 70. Chevy Silverado by Bailey Zimmerman somehow sticking around at 60. Ghetto Love Story by Baby Chief Do It at 49. Mexico Honey by Casey Musgraves at 48. Currently, right now, her biggest ever solo hit, which just feels wrong to me. I'm happy everyone remembered that she's hot as hell, and the music video does a lot to reinforce that. I still think the song's the weakest on the album. You couldn't get Abilene or Everybody Wants to Be a Cowboy or Loneliest Girl. The one consolation I've got is that apparently Willing and Able by Noah Kahan is becoming a minor hit at 61. It's a legitimately great song. If this is the sleeper that can follow and hopefully eclipse Orbiter, maybe this miserable mainstream summer might have some light by the end of August. Pardon the pun there. If you know, you know. Anyway, we only got 4 new arrivals this week, and there's really only one story here that we have to start with. Number 99, Minibar by Gracie Abrams.
Hello, pedal to the metal, think I'm high and everybody knows, but I'm always subtle when I'm causing trouble. Hate to burst your bubble, I feel weird, I think I'm gonna go.
Look, there's a part of me that doesn't want to pile on to Gracie Abrams at this point. Again, the new album's not good, the reviews have been harsh, the fans are uneasy. If her 15th minute playing in Taylor Swift's shadow is about up, few are gonna mourn, especially if she only has 2 new songs hitting the Hot 100 instead of a proper album bomb, which I think she was set up to be close to landing. And listening to this, well, some digging into the liner notes have highlighted that the quirkier songs have been co-writes from her longtime best friend Aubrey Hober, who happens to be the sister of Malcolm Todd. But if this is what passes as quirky, someone who takes a little bit too far by the minibar by hitting up a mini-mart and then gets lost on the train, where you can tell they want to be lost in the crowd rather than getting perceived, no, I'm sorry. I get playing to soft focus relatability, but there's no meat or sparkling and flair to this. The line that stands out is, "I'm always subtle when I'm causing trouble," which is a good rhyme, but there's no spark or intensity that actually shows that trouble actually happening behind the scenes, something that could blow up and mean more. If you're like me and you grew up on Kesha, this is utterly toothless. And that's mirrored by Aaron Dessner's fluttery patter with the muted percussion that feels like a Midnight's ripoff down to every melody shamelessly echoed in Abrams' delivery. The foundations of a decent song are there, but they were already built better 4 years ago. This is a quirky party song for people who don't go to parties and lay out the blandest spread if they were hosting. In other words, I would skip it. Number 89, Freaked Out by Fat Papi.
I can tell you freaked out, freaked out, show 'em that you freaked out, freaked out, I can tell you freaked out.
Okay, this is a weird one. A Kurdish rapper from New Zealand gets a viral hit from out of nowhere after releasing an EP that did nothing last year with a song title that's destined to be mistaken for the Dexter and the Moon Rock song from earlier this year. Wonder why everyone's getting their freak on. And my first thought is that his producer probably needs to send a cut to 2014 DJ Mustard immediately, with the minimal bassy swell, the brittle snap, the gang shouts, although credit for a pretty slick switch up into a trap progression on the hook that shows a little more texture, credit that he's gonna lose just as quickly by a mix that feels a shade too compressed. And like with the Mustard cuts of that era, Fat Papi is going for a lot of strip club vibes to try to drag this girl away from her current guy, although by the second verse he gets a little bit too much dip on his chip where he talks about getting his money first before paying her and that he could make her famous. Dude, you went viral on TikTok tied to, and this is true, a hairstyle video linked to Jocelyn Meyer and then featured her in the video. It's pretty obvious she's making you famous, not the other way around. But outside that, while his voice is pretty soft and unremarkable, the song's got a nice groovy bounce and a pretty good hook. I mean, it's pretty far from exceptional, but if you got any fondness for this era, it's pretty decent if a little underpowered. No qualms, it's fine. Number 51, Good Reason by Gracie Abrams.
I'll be leaving, and neither of us saw it coming. If only I had a good reason.
And we're back to Gracie Abrams and a soft-spoken acoustic ballad in case we were getting worried that this album was developing more personality or getting interesting. But okay, that might be a little harsh because I actually kind of like the sentiment of this. A slow-motion breakup where you can tell that he is way more into her than the other way around, which should be everything that she ever wants, and yet she knows that his confession and how blithely he accepts being told things he doesn't really want to hear, that it's got to be over, and she wishes she had a good reason to do it. The problem is that as someone who has been on the other side and has learned this harsh lesson, there are a wealth of good reasons in what she describes if she wants to break up. She feels love-bombed, she needs space, the relationship isn't balanced, and he's overcommitting when she's not as much in love. She needs to focus on herself. But that would also mean saying things that could hurt him in the short term. And there's a real fear of doing that, even if it might be the right thing to do. What's revealing is that on the bridge, she wishes that they fought or that he got disappointed and maybe even turned abusive, all of which, no, you don't want that to actually happen. And it's very telling how sheltered your viewpoint is otherwise, instead of actually doing more and reconciling her emotions. Basically, this is the sentiment that Olivia Rodrigo expressed on Less, but handled way clumsier with less detail and much weaker delivery. So, no, I don't hate it, but Gracie Abrams' music is so decidedly bereft of emotional experience that I just don't have a lot of use for it. It's a decent idea, reasonably well explored, but if she wants to keep writing in this way, I think the Daughter from Hell really needs to grow up. And finally, number 18, Dead Fresh by Lil Baby.
Virgin Mary Flower say I pull up fresh as hell. Everyone else got M. Bitch talking about since then. Hold it out my ear. Money coming in, I put my nanny in Chanel. Made it out the slum, I got my granny pushing on me back. If I lose it all, is you gon' hold it down for real? Hold on. This beat came from for real.
I mean, I guess We're in 2026 and Lil Baby ran out of unique subject matter with his grind set bars at least 3 years ago, but when mainstream rap is having a lousy year and he's got a lead-off single produced by Pharrell where the first line has Lil Baby comparing himself and his fresh fit to Carlton Banks, the public will take what they can get? Seriously, he fills up bars on the hook saying that the beat comes from Pharrell, as if we couldn't tell from the scratchy, lumpy 4 count and the strings loop behind the spare trap percussion. And from there, it's brand name porn, calling this girl's boyfriend an eyesore because apparently she better matches his skin tone, and some of the clumsiest flows and forced rhymes I've heard from him in some time. But I keep going back to that Carlton line and kind of how revealing it is. There was a time when Carlton Banks was the lamest dude on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and while that somewhat changed within the arc of the show, he did grow. I get the impression based off the music video, Lil Baby is dropping it because he likes that rich preppy style and clean respectability. I guess it's fine for him, the grind set paid off, he made it, but he's got precious little to say from that territory beyond it, and the most we have is a decent enough beat from Pharrell and an okay hook. Not much else. Probably not going back to it. And yeah, that's the week. Yeah, really not giving me a lot here. The best is going to Fat Papi for Freaked Out because despite its problems, I like that throwback groove. And the worst is going to Gracie Abrams with Minibar because talk about being the most eye-rolling waste of potential. If you want to make a pop-ready party song, actually commit to the bit. What a waste. Hey, you say you overcommit? I want proof. Next week, well, it's probably a country fight for number 1. We'll probably get something from that Charlie XCX project. We'll have to see. Stay tuned for all that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.